along Lake Victoria, a major body of water.
This is a pretty shallow earthquake, part of the East African rift zone. Okay, very typical of the area.
But the quake was felt in parts of Kenya, Uganda, and Rwanda. Six Flags America amusement park in Maryland has been evacuated. Authorities will only say it's out of an abundance of caution. Tomorrow is the 15th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. Today, New York paused to remember some of the first responders, the men and women known as the city's bravest.
On behalf of all, and I mean all, 8.5 million New Yorkers, thank you for your service. Thank you for your sacrifice. Thank you for your courage.
Mayor Bill de Blasio, you're listening to ABC News.
Attention business owners. We know that owning a business means getting things done right now. So if your right now list includes a new building, call the Right Now Company. General Steel. We can design a building for your business quickly and save you thousands of dollars. That's right, thousands. You may think General Steel only builds large projects or that you can't afford General Steel quality. Well, check these prices. How about a 40 by 60 foot building for under $22,000? Or even a 50 by 100 for under $35,000? That's right, a 5,000 square foot building for under $35,000. And these buildings all have General Steel quality. Best of all, you can still order a building and have it delivered in time to build this year. How's that for right now? So don't delay. Call General Steel today at 888-98-STEEL. That's 888-98-STEEL. Need more planning? No problem. General Steel can help you with that right now. Call General Steel and be in your new building this year. 888-98-STEEL. That's 888-987-8335.
More Zika prevention spraying this weekend in Miami Beach, but some residents are worried about what's being used.
While U.S. health officials say it's safe, Naled has been banned in Europe since 2012. Health officials here in the U.S. say Naled is only toxic in high doses, but that is not easing the minds of thousands of concerned residents who want to know more about what's being sprayed over them and their loved ones. The spraying comes as the head of the CDC warns that they are essentially out of money in the fight against the virus.
ABC's Eva Pilgrim. Close to 2 million people from around the world have been performing the first rites of the Islamic Hajj pilgrimage to Mecca. Notably absent this year are Iranian pilgrims. Last year, some 64,000 Iranians took part in the Hajj, but disputes with the Saudi government prompted Tehran to bar its citizens from taking part. This time of year, college football it's like a religion for many.
I said it's great to be a Tennessee boy.
And there's a University of Tennessee fans who were tailgating at Bristol Motor Speedway today. They're at the NASCAR track to see a football game, the Battle of Bristol. The Vols taking on Virginia Tech.
Let's go Hokies!
The 150,000 people who are expected to attend could be a record crowd for a college football game. This is ABC News.
Here's a special message for those of you who owe the IRS at least $10,000 or more in back taxes. The IRS has special programs in place that could eliminate or reduce your tax debt by thousands of dollars. With a call to National Tax Helpline, you can stop the wage garnishments, levies, and tax liens now. Take down the number now for the Tax Helpline. 800-805-1055. That's 800-805-1055 for free information. 800-805-1055.
Daria Albinger, ABC News.
From the KMET Weather Center for Beaumont on the Pass area this morning, we can expect sunny and breezy conditions today with a high of 95, but winds to 25 miles an hour. Tonight it'll be clear, continued breezy, low 68 with winds to 25 miles an hour. It'll be sunny and breezy again Sunday with a high of 91 with winds to 25 miles an hour. Monday looks sunny with a high of 82. For Redlands, we'll have sunshine this afternoon with a high of 93. It'll be sunny and hot for Palm Springs with a high of 106. I'm Rod Tanner for Smart Talk 1490 KMET.
Hello, listeners. This is Christopher from The Christopher Show. Hey, if you missed one of our shows here at KMET, don't worry about it. You can go to our webpage, and that's KMET1490am.com. Go to the homepage, click on the SoundCloud tab, and hear any show anytime you want.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
Welcome. It is time for Constitution Radio right here on KMET 1490 AM. for those of you who are watching on KMET TV online at KMET1490am.com, you'll notice the background's a little different. I'm a little brighter. We are broadcasting live from the Doug studio way out there in Murrieta, and we have Alex on the line with us from somewhere out in the Los Angeles County area. Welcome to the program, Alex. Good to have you on with us.
Good afternoon.
How you doing, sir?
Well, I could be better, but that's always the case when you get to be a septuagenarian like I am.
A septuagenarian.
I think that's the term. That's the first time I've used it. I'm going to have to see how it fits.
Well, it's great to have you with me, and we've got a lot to talk about today. And actually, we were going to originally broadcast from an event in Paris, a Second Amendment Day event, and due to a number of factors, we're unable to be out there, and for those same factors decided to keep me from going into the studio. So we're going to do it this way. But this is a big weekend. Number one, it's the 15th anniversary of 9/11, and yesterday I was at an event at Linfield Christian School in Temecula. The freshman class of that high school wasn't even born yet when 9/11 happened. A junior at that school, Satya, who had been on this program a couple weeks ago, she hosted it, had Mark Thiessen come out, and it was a pretty good event. Mayor Nagar from the city of Temecula also gave a few words, and it was he was pretty incredible. He gave a fantastic speech. He asked a question, and this is something that I like to ask people also, is, are you the kind of person that if you had been on, United 93, would you have been one of them that says, let's roll, or hiding in the corner? During the American Revolution, would you have been the part of the third of the country that decided not to participate in the independence, or the 3% that was doing the fighting, and the third that was supporting that effort? Would you have been the one volunteering to go to Europe or the Pacific Theater in World War II after the rise of Hitler? And and he said in his speech, I would hope that in those positions, I would be the one to say, let's roll. And it was a pretty emotional speech. I thought the mayor of Temecula, Mayor Nagar, did a fantastic job. Satya's speech was pretty incredible, and Mark Thiessen's was interesting. I did have one thing, though, about his speech. I wasn't full agreement with, and I wanted to throw this at you. He said that we're not at war with Islam, we're at war with radical Islam. The Muslims are not the enemy, radical Islam is. And I'm not sure I fully agreed with that, and here's what I mean. That would be like saying during World War II, well, the Nazis are not our enemies, just the radical Nazis. Well, that's ridiculous. The German people were not necessarily our enemy, the Nazis were. So getting back to the Islamic Jihad, Middle Easterners may not all be our enemy, or those who live in regions where Islam is the norm or the dominant force may not all be our enemy. But the Islamic Jihad is. Islam is, in my opinion, the modern day Nazism. What are your thoughts?
Well, you know as well as I that we disagree on this point as we do on some others. Mm-hmm. And my position is that we've got a lot of intelligence agents who speak Arabic and Pashtun and whichever. They're extremely valuable. I believe that there are loyal Americans who are Muslim, but I'm very much in favor of finding out if they're that way. It's got to be done on an individual basis. I don't want to condemn every Islamist, not Islamist.
Well, how do you vet these people though when you know the jihadists practice taqiyya, which is deception and lying?
It's the same thing as disarming a dud bomb. You do it very carefully. Very carefully.
Okay, well, I think you got a point there. And, I think as Americans, we're good-hearted people. We want to believe that those people are out there. We want to believe.
See, we're put in the opposite position, though. We've got these radical communists running our society now who are bringing in as many unvetted Islamists as they possibly can. Apparently, they believe that their enemy's enemy is their friend, and they're wrong there, but they're wrong about everything. They don't make any sense in anything they do.
I don't suppose we could say that only the radical communists are the problem.
Well, there are.
They're all radical.
There are communists who are not revolutionaries, that are just intellectual enthusiasts. But I'm talking about the people like Barack Obama, Nate Holden, all these people. These are not just armchair philosophers. These are people who are going to cause lots of dead, lots of disruption, an overturn of our system if they can. That's what Holder was trying to do with the new Black Panther Party. He made it real clear the first month he was in office. I'm going to make sure that all the rules on civil rights are used against white people. It's simple.
And it's interesting because you never know what you're going to get sometimes with people. Let me give you an example. You were in the Vietnam War.
Eric Holder, excuse me. Yeah, I was in the Vietnam War. And when you say, by the way, would you join these various conflagrations, I was 4F on 2 counts. I was physically unfit for military service. I only weighed 125 pounds. And I still managed to get into the Marine Corps and get to Vietnam. So that's my answer. I'll fight for my country even now.
Right. Well, and I feel the same way. I served in the United States Navy, and I was raised by a Marine. You were in the Marine Corps in Vietnam. There's this gentleman by the name of Jason Robertson, and he wrote a book. I'm trying to remember the name of the book off the top of my head. Unbelievable Love, something like A Love Beyond Belief, something like that. But anyway, I'll have to look it up. I met him years and years and years ago at a book signing. Well, he just sent me something through my Facebook. And for those of you who, by the way, are listening live and you want to, be in touch with through Facebook, I do have Facebook on, and I am at facebook.com/Douglas V. Gibbs. Here's the message he sent me through Facebook, and based on it, I don't think he's necessarily listened to the program, but it's very interesting. Jason Robertson. Hope all is well with all the division going on in our country, from race, police, now the anthem. I'm beyond in disbelief. This is not the same country I was rescued to. Anytime you need a patriotic American who appreciates this country, the flag, the police, the opportunity to succeed, no matter what skin color, hit me up. God bless America. Oh, by the way, Jason Robertson was born in Vietnam and was one of the orphans that was pulled out of that country as Saigon was falling.
Well, back during the Contra Wars, when I was demonstrating against the communists in L.A., hardly anybody was willing to come up, and now there were a few of us there, but hardly anybody would join. But those people who did, the people who actually flocked to our group and said, can I have a sign to hold, they were immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
They were victims of communist oppression in their own homeland. They came here, and they're telling me, what is it with you people? You've got everything that humanity has ever looked for, and these people are looking to be enslaved again.
Right.
Doesn't make sense. But you have to have seen it to understand it.
Here's you got to remember the younger generation. First of all, history is what they know from their lifetime. They really don't know anything beyond that. I'm reading a book about Cicero right now, and it was fascinating because, and you know what? During the break, I think I'm going to go get it so I can read you the passage. But it talks about the younger generation right before the fall of the Republic, where it becomes an empire, an oligarchy, a tyranny. And it was a description of today's younger generation.
Well, the more things change, the more they remain the same. There's nothing new under the sun.
Now, as we are talking about 9/11 and talking about the communists and Islam, do you remember where you were when 9/11 happened or when you first heard about it?
I was getting ready to go to school to work, and my wife says, "You got to come in here." She's watching TV in the kitchen. She says, "This is big." You know, she's got a real good appreciation of you know, she's from Japan, and so she's not always right on all the definitions of every word she hears, but she knows what's going on.
Right.
And she says, "This is big." And right then, one of the buildings fell.
You know, I was working in the construction industry, and I drove a big rig to drive the equipment to the job site, and then my crew would drive a work pickup truck behind the rig, and when we got to the job site, then, you know, we'd unload the equipment, do our thing. And then when the equipment was already on the job, then I would drive the pickup truck, the work truck, and everybody else would be, well, usually sleeping on the way there. And usually I'd have it on talk radio. Now, this particular morning, I wasn't driving the rig, I was driving the truck, but one of the knuckleheads had crashed my truck, so it was in the shop, so we had a rental. And the rental had a CD player, and we thought, oh, what a novel opportunity to play CDs on the way to work instead of listening to talk radio the whole time. So when it happened, I didn't know it happened because we were too busy listening to music CDs. Got to the job site, we're out in the middle of nowhere, it's dirt, you know, we don't have a bunch of people around us, so, you know, we're not going to be exposed to this. So we got to work, and about halfway through the day, right around noon time, we had a breakdown on our machine, and it was something that was beyond my ability to fix, so we had to call the mechanic from the yard to come out and fix the machine. So he shows up, and his first words out of his mouth, "Hey, man, did you hear about what's going on in New York? Somebody accidentally flew a plane into a building." I'm like, oh, wow, they must have, you know, that's weird, you know. I mean, you know, usually, you know, pilots are aware of what's around them. There's, you know, there's a seal, an altitude that they can't go below, things like that. So that seems strange, but wow. So someone accidentally flew their plane into a building. That's all I knew. So we went ahead and finished the workday after we fixed the machine. And then on the way home, and it was probably about 4 o'clock, we turn on, we decide not to listen to the CDs. We turn on talk radio, and they start talking about the fact that there was a couple planes that hit these buildings. And there was a lot of confusion, a lot of, you know, it's an emergency situation, and we're listening intently. But the attitude was still like, well, it could have been on accident, was the attitude. When I got home, because it was a hot day in September, and you know, rather than run the air conditioner, my wife had the front door open, so I walk up the front door, door's wide open, television right in front of me, and the first image I saw of 9/11 as I walked up to my front door was that second plane hitting the tower. And when that second plane hit, and I saw it happen, and I saw the flames burst out of the building, first words out of my mouth to my wife, I kind of looked over at her and I said, that wasn't on accident. That was on purpose. Immediately, I knew it was a terror strike. We'll talk a little bit more about this. Some things going on in Murrieta and Riverside that will shock you. One last thing about Mr. Kaepernick of the San Francisco 49ers and the difference between Hillary and Trump after this break. We'll be right back.
got a dent in your door, a scratch in your fender, or a scratch in your door and a dent in your fender. If you need auto detailing, if you need fire shooting decals on the side of your car, if you need a rally stripe right down the middle of your hardtop, I don't care what it is. The Patriots at AllStar Collision are the place you want to go. They're the only place to go. 522 Railroad Street in Corona. Web address allstarci.com to see all that they do and what they're all about. Phone number 951-279-9161. AllStar Collision, the kings of wreck and roll.
Hi, this is Ed Hoffman, President Wholesale Capital Corporation, your direct mortgage lender. Real estate prices are still low, which means now's the time to buy your next home before they go up. Whether it's a home to live in, a vacation house, or an investment property, we can meet your mortgage financing needs to help you realize the next phase of your American dream. At Wholesale Capital Corporation, we make sure you get a loan that you can afford with terms that work for you. Wholesale Capital welcomes FHA buyers, conventional buyers, jumbo loan buyers, and we proudly help the U.S. military veterans take advantage of the zero down payment VA loan program. Nobody treats veterans better than Wholesale Capital Corporation. Seniors, if you're interested in creating an additional stream of income or just making your mortgage payment go away with a reverse mortgage, Wholesale Capital would love to help you. To speak with a loan officer who has your best interests in mind, call Wholesale Capital at 855-640-2020. That's area code 855-640-2020. Wholesale Capital Corporation, where we can close.
Help me fight the good fight. This radio program is funded by advertising dollars. So, if you are a business, add Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs to your business portfolio. If you are a listener, become a patron of the business's advertising on this program. Without advertising, your weekend dose of truth ends. With more advertising, Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs grows, and we will be on the way to win the battle to restore the Republic. To learn more, email us at constitutionspeaker@yahoo.com or visit douglasvgibbs.com. The spirit of Paul Revere is alive and well and broadcasting on KMET AM 1490. Constitutionalist Douglas V. Gibbs hosts a roundtable of local citizens through local, state, and national issues every Saturday at 8 a.m. Thomas Jefferson said, "We in America do not have government by the majority. We have government by the majority who participate." So, participate. Listen to Conservative Voice Radio every Saturday at 8 a.m. and join Paul Revere's modern Ride for Liberty.
And now, back to our program.
Welcome back, Constitutional Radio on KMET 1490 AM. Yeah, the book I've been reading is Cicero by Anthony Everett, and I'm about halfway through it, about a third of the way through it. The Life and Times of Rome's Greatest Politician. And I am a fan of Cicero. I've read a number of books regarding him and books by him, The Law being one of them. There's also one called Cicero's Murder Trials. But I just read this morning a part that caught my attention, talking about a practical joke about what one of the politicians did is they dressed as a woman to get into an all-woman type ceremony or something. And it says, the practical joke would amuse Rome's fashionable younger generation. These young men and women had plenty of money and were socially and sexually liberated. They turned their backs on the severe tradition of public duty, no longer defining themselves exclusively in terms of community or family. They had a passion for fornication, guzzling, and other forms of sensuality. Men prostituted themselves like women, and women sold their chastity at every corner. To please their palates, they ransacked land and sea. They went to bed before they needed sleep, and instead of waiting until they felt hungry, thirsty, cold, or tired, they forestalled their body's needs by self-indulgence. Such practices incited young men who had run through their property to have recourse to crime. And to me, that it sounded very similar to today's society. And you go on to read that, and what it says is this is the generation that was in place when Caesar took control and the Republic was no more. And we're talking like 50 years before Christ.
Decadence is decadence.
Absolutely. And so I found it fascinating because to me, going back to what you said earlier, as much as things change, they stay the same. And the correlation to today just, to me, was striking.
Well, Marx said that history takes place twice. The first time is tragedy, and the second time is farce.
You know, and we have things going on locally. I wanted to bring up that I think are a part of society and some of our decisions of our politicians. You know, we could talk about, you know, the Black Lives Matter and the anti-police, but you know what? To a point, you kind of get it, because police have become a little more strong-willed, a little more authoritarian. Now, I am not necessarily jumping on the anti-police bandwagon. I believe there's an awful lot of good cops out there, and I believe in what they need to do, and so on and so forth. But right here in the city of Murrieta, on September 6th, young man Alejandro Rojo was caught on film being beaten, and I'm watching it, and it looks excessive. Now, I don't know what happened before and after. You know, the kid was tased and didn't even respond to it, so he was likely high on something that, you know, made him almost like a Superman. He didn't feel any pain or whatnot. So I get all that, but on the same token, I'm watching, you know, the multiple swings of the batons, the kicks in the crotch against this kid while he's laying there, things like that, and I'm thinking to myself, this is excessive. And then I've had my own confrontations with police here in Murrieta, and the attitude is, I'm the authority over you, do what you're told. And I remember when I was a kid that the police were partners in the community. They were those who you went to as a partner in your community, not as this authoritarian figure dictated and controlled. And that's my own perception. Once again, I'm not anti-cop. I'm not going to be calling Kaepernick walking around with socks with pigs with, you know, cop hats on and stupid stuff like that. I believe law and order is important. I believe that the police force is important when it comes to an orderly society. And I do believe, and I'm not so foolish to believe that every cop is a bad cop, but I do, at the same time, I'm also not so foolish to believe that there are no bad eggs. There are. And I believe that they have multiplied. And I do believe that police, be it because they're on the defense because of what's been going on or whatnot, but they do carry themselves in a more authoritarian manner. What are your thoughts about that?
My thoughts are that the plot, which is not articulated necessarily among all the members, but they're all part of it attitudinally, the plot is to destroy our society.
Right.
And one of the first things you have to do, the communists call it alienation. You must alienate the wives from the husbands. You must alienate the rich from the poor. You have to alienate the society from those who are entrusted to protect it.
Right.
And therefore, they're releasing thousands and thousands of prisoners. They've got the Ferguson effect that even Comey, FBI Director Comey, spoke of, where cops are afraid to engage in proactive policing, and as a consequence, I got the figures in the book review. As a consequence, the black mortality rate is going up astronomically.
Well, now, here's the thing, too, is, you know, on Facebook, I was arguing with someone, they were saying, well, that blacks are 2.5 times more likely to be killed by cops than whites. And I said, well, but that's not a cop problem as much as it is a culture problem.
They're also 10 times more likely to commit homicide.
Exactly. They're more likely to, you know, be caught in a robbery and so on and so forth. It's a culture problem, not a cop problem, I think, when it comes to these numbers. Now, you know, and it's interesting, we are on this topic, and it is a fascinating segue. I didn't mean it that way, but it worked out nicely. You have been working on a book and telling us about a book that goes exactly on about what we're talking about. Tell us a little bit more about it. What's the name of the book again?
It's called The War on Cops by Heather McDonald.
Right.
And it's an answer to all this nonsense we've been getting from Eric Holder and Obama. Holder and Obama are walking around telling the world, Obama at the United Nations, telling the world that American police are racists, that they operate in terms of enforcing the law purely on a bigoted basis, that the reason there's so many black people in prison is because of what they call mass incarceration, that somehow or other we are magically grouping these people and shoving them into prison.
Right.
It's all lies and nonsense, and to me it's the big signal that this is not accidental. This is not casual. This is a very well thought out plan to destroy our society.
Right.
It's called misdirection. Back in the 60s, when the hippies were writing all these self-help books, they talked about how a girl who is fairly unattractive starts eating. Now, what she wants to do is to go to a gym, work out, get tight, learn to dance, practice her conversation, things like that. But no, she's going to start eating. And the more rejected she is, the more she eats. Same thing with a guy who starts drinking because he feels like he's not popular. These are misdirections. And what we've done with the blacks in America, they're right. There has been this horrible white conspiracy against them, but it's not the conservative whites, it's the Democrats. They're the ones that control these cities. And they're the ones that had enslaved the blacks in the first place. They maintained the slavery through Jim Crow with their chain gangs and their Ku Klux Klan. And they get to the 60s, and all they need from the blacks is their vote.
Well, and the poor and the minorities have been voting Democrat for 50 years. Well, and they're still poor. They're still downtrodden. The cities are still a mess with Democratic leadership for the last 50 years. We've seen what happened to Detroit.
But what I'm saying is that they maintain that control by keeping them poor and ignorant.
And also offering them gifts from the Treasury. Hey, if you vote for those Democrats or vote for those Republicans, you'll lose your gifts from the Treasury. You won't get those benefits.
That's exactly right. And what happens is that you end up destroying the family. Mm-hmm. Again, alienation. Alienate the father from the children. Well, the fathers are not in the home. 70-some%
right.
of black homes, there's no father. And when there's no father, this system has been worked out over millions of years. Most of us would say God-given, that there's a father and a mother in the home, and that they raise the children to be good and decent citizens. These kids are not being raised to be anything.
Right.
They're ricocheting from pillar to post, and all they see in terms of success is drug dealers and hoes.
So how does the book suggest that we address this issue, the war on cops?
I'm not sure there is a solution. What she's saying is that what we've been doing is wrong. You had Giuliani, I guess you'd say this would be the solution. Giuliani and Bratton, when they took over New York City, crime was out of control. They'd had Democratic mayor after Democratic mayor.
Right.
Giuliani takes over. He starts this stop, question, and frisk. In the first year that he was there, 12% less murders. Next year, 15% less murders. He cut the murder rate in half in New York. Now,
that's a funny thing. Because here in Murrieta, we're considered the second safest city in America, but our cops are authoritarian.
They have to be. So what you got is a liberal, compassionate liberal clique that is saying that it's wrong to stop and frisk people, even though you're saving thousands of lives across the country. So they filed suit. You got de Blasio in New York, mayor, talking about how he's going to end all this. Well, you get the Ferguson effect. You get these humongous releases of prisoners. You get all the unvetted jihadists being brought in.
Right.
They're successful, boy. They are really successful. Want to kill a society?
I want to
welcome
Rick to listening. He's contacted me on Facebook and jokingly he's watching KME TV. Says, "I see you. You can't hide anymore." Hi, Rick. Great to have you. If you have anything to say, go ahead and send me messages. That's all right. And for those of you listening, you can also call in And I would love to hear from you, 951-922-3532, if you want to call into the program. Final statements about your book and what you've come up with today. You got about 4 minutes.
I'll be making multiple reviews of it. One of the things that the book doesn't address sufficiently, I think, is that Barack Obama has packed our courts in the last 8 years with Marxist judges.
Yeah, we're about 70% liberal in the court system.
It's just insane. So you get these judges. There's a woman in this book. They give her a couple of chapters, and she just makes every decision wrong. I mean, clearly and easily wrong. But there's nowhere to appeal anymore. When you get horrible fascist behavior by your betters, I guess we'd call them now, you go to court and they just tell you take a hike. You don't have any rights. It's just like those people who were trying to vote in Philadelphia with the new Black Party, new Black Panther Party. There's no response from the authorities.
Right.
They're on the other side. So yes, I will be doing more on this book. Like many of these books that I choose, they are so full of dynamite information, and in order to be a good citizen nowadays, you'd have to read a book a week.
Oh yeah.
There's just too much going on.
You know, and I'm constantly reading myself, and a book on Cicero is pretty good. For those of you watching, see me munching on something, of course, I'm eating pistachios. PoliticalPistachio.com if you want to read what is written by yours truly. Didn't do a lot today and yesterday on the writing front. Had a few fun medical stuff going on. Real quick before we move on to the break, I wanted to bring something else that's going on up, something that's going on locally. Now, when the buses were turned around in Murrieta in California in 2014, I was a part of that. And there was a bunch of local residents of Murrieta protested at the Border Patrol station. And I had the opportunity to be on television, radio, and all sorts of stuff. I was on Fox News a bunch of times, and Al Jazeera America, and NPR, and so on and so forth, One American News. And when I was asked about my involvement, aside from the unconstitutionality of the federal government's actions, I cited my concerns regarding health issues. A month before the Murrieta immigration protest, my granddaughter had contracted hand, mouth, and foot disease. The increase of that disease in the area correlated with the increase of illegal aliens in the area. It was essentially a disease that was not at all found in our area. Suddenly, it not only appeared, it was escalating, it was climbing, skyrocketing. Reports are floating around indicating that the illegal aliens being shipped in our community were sick, not only with hand, mouth, and foot disease, but tuberculosis, Chagas, scabies, smallpox. One of the Border Patrol agents, as a matter of fact, afterward wound up testing positive for TB. In the following months, we had a measles scare in Disneyland, and though the source was never discovered, it was thought that it might be illegal aliens in this country, because this, once again, is a disease we just don't see. Other diseases have begun to rise up and show themselves. The United States had all but eradicated these diseases in our country, and a large part of that was because of our strict immigration policies. To come into this country, aside from the monetary cost, a potential immigrant would need to go through a litany of tests to ensure that they were not diseased. Through illegal immigration and the Democrats importing people from troubled parts of the world while calling them refugees, we are literally allowing the most infectious diseases in the world to literally just walk across our border. Now, here's why I bring this up. Last week in Jurupa Hills at an elementary school in Riverside, California, 2 cases of leprosy have been reported. Leprosy, I guarantee you it didn't just pop up for no reason. Now, letters were sent home to parents to inform them of the 2 cases of the disease discovered at the local school. And this is yet another reason for us to be vigilant and securing our borders and enforcing our immigration laws in a strict manner. Illegal immigration has all kinds of problems that comes with it. It violates the rule of law. It creates a national security risk with illegal immigration as with potential terrorists existing in the mix. Now, we're welcoming into our country diseases which places our communities and our children at risk. And we are not willing to at least defend our children against this? I mean, illegal immigration impacts all Americans, and it places our children at risk. Now, I know with the leprosy, 95% of the people out there are naturally immune to it. It's not as contagious as some of these others, but the fact is, it's leprosy. It is a nasty disease that isn't in the United States. We got 2 cases in Riverside.
You remember a guy named Maxwell Smart?
Oh, yeah.
His nemesis, the enemy of America, was called chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they're creating on every front. We're dying of a death of 1,000 cuts. And just like Obama can't say radical Islamic terrorists, we can't say communist subversive. Just think of how many times you've heard those words in the media in the last 10 years or 20 years. We have been shamed by the McCarthy lie to believe that if you're an anti-communist, you're some kind of a fascist. It's insane.
Speaking of communist subversives, real quick, 100 members of the House of Representatives and 20 members of the U.S. Senate have connections to communist and socialist groups, as well as the Muslim Brotherhood. This is revealed in a film that is now available for sale. Trevor Loudon's The Enemies Within. TheEnemiesWithin.com. Get yourself a copy. You can order it online now. We're working to get it in the theaters. The film is done. Post-production is complete. I saw it. I saw a pre-screening of it before post-production, and it knocked my socks off. I couldn't even imagine how good it is. Now, I've also seen the first 10 minutes of the final version that's on DVD in theaters. I don't have a DVD yet, but I'm good friends with the executive producer of that film, Dennis Jackson. When you see the film, that's after the title of the film, its first name pops up, executive producer Dennis Jackson. He's a very good friend of mine, and I'm here to tell you that film will knock your socks off, and you won't believe the hold that socialism, communism, the Democratic Socialists of America, and groups like Communist Party USA, these groups, the hold they have on the Democratic Party.
May I read an appropriate poem?
Right after the break.
Okie doke.
The true patriots of AllStar Collision have been proudly serving the Inland Empire for over 20 years. Built on honesty, integrity, quality, and old-fashioned customer service, we offer lifetime warranties for our work, and every vehicle serviced by AllStar Collision is washed, detailed, the headlights polished, fluids are checked and topped off, safety checked, and returned in showroom condition. We offer free estimates, are approved by major insurance companies, and accept all claims for all cars and trucks. We use computerized frame straightening to factory specifications, offer fiberglass body repair and paint, free local pickup and delivery, and after-hours towing. Mention this radio program at drop-off and receive $100 off or a free rental car for up to 5 days during your repair. Visit us at allstarci.com or at 522 Railroad Street in Corona. Call us at 951-279-9161. We are the kings of wreck and roll.
What's your constitutional IQ? Your quest to learn the Constitution can be fun for the whole family. Learn about the Constitution as you play the Constitution Quest board game. Learn more at constitutionquest.com.
Hi, this is Ed Hoffman, President, Wholesale Capital Corporation, your direct mortgage lender. Real estate prices are still low, which means now's the time to buy your next home before they go up. Whether it's a home to live in, a vacation house, or an investment property, we can meet your mortgage financing needs to help you realize the next phase of your American dream. At Wholesale Capital Corporation, we make sure you get a loan that you can afford with terms that work for you. Wholesale Capital welcomes FHA buyers, conventional buyers, jumbo loan buyers, and we proudly help the U.S. military veterans take advantage of the zero down payment VA loan program. Nobody treats veterans better than Wholesale Capital Corporation. Seniors, if you're interested in creating an additional stream of income or just making your mortgage payment go away with a reverse mortgage, Wholesale Capital would love to help you. To speak with a loan officer who has your best interests in mind, call Wholesale Capital at 855-640-2020. That's area code 855-640-2020. Wholesale Capital Corporation, where we can close.
And now, back to our program.
Welcome back, Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs here on KMET 1490 AM. And Alex has a poem for us to tie up what we were talking about in the last segment. So, Alex, the mic is yours.
Yeah, this is one of those prose poems that the left is always bragging about. This one's from '86. It's got the peace emblem with the hammer and sickle superimposed on it in the center. At the top, it says, "Better read than anything."
Yeah.
It says, "Dear Patrick Henry, this is to inform you that your oft-quoted declaration, 'Give me liberty or give me death,' has been amended to read, 'Save me from possible nuclear holocaust, and I will gladly sell my children into certain totalitarian slavery.'" Then below the emblem it says, "Having repeatedly endorsed the concept of unilateral disarmament, it should now be clear that members of our so-called peace movement have decided, consciously or unconsciously, to sell out Western civilization in general, and the United States of America in particular. All that remains to be done is to create and disseminate quasi-religious propaganda that depicts the Soviet Empire as sufficiently good and the United States as sufficiently bad that the sellout will not appear as treason so much as a simple change of management."
That's pretty powerful stuff, sir.
Well, I don't mess around, man.
And appropriate. Speaking of appropriate, let's move on to the next topic. Now, I know a lot of people are bothered about the Kaepernick thing. They're tired of talking about it. There's a San Francisco 49ers player that kneels during the national anthem. There's a player now on the Seahawks that's doing it, a player on the Broncos that's done it. And I came across a Baltimore Ravens tight end, Ben Watson, who says this is ridiculous. He's out for the season after injuring himself last month, a preseason game. He's a Christian, a father of 5, and the author of Under Our Skin, Getting Real About Race and Getting Free from the Fears and Frustrations That Divide Us. His essays on racially charged events in Ferguson, Missouri 2 years ago went viral. And he did a post following the terror attacks in Paris last fall that did really well. Now he has zeroed in on Kaepernick from his hospital bed. And he wrote a post about Kaepernick. And he said that skin is not the problem. It's a sin problem. He was also on Fox and Friends. Let me read an excerpt from his post real quick. And then I've got something to say about it. "I will not have the option to kneel this Sunday while the national anthem is being played. A week ago, in what would prove to be my last pregame opportunity of this 2016 season, I stood with my right hand over my heart as the anthem played. And if I am fortunate enough to ever be dressed for another game, I imagine I will be doing the same thing I did in my last, standing. Not because America is all I desire it to be, because most assuredly it is not. Racism still stews. Families are fractured. The unborn are trashed. Schools are struggling. Religious freedom is increasingly under attack. Violence pollutes our cities and our suburbs, and there is a growing divide between law enforcement and the community. I stand because this mixed bag of good and evil is my home. And because it's my home, my standing is a pledge to continue to fight against all injustice and preserve the greatest attributes of the country, including Colin Kaepernick's right to kneel." Well said, Mr. Watson, well said. But here's what's fascinating about it. So I put a post up about it, and then the links to the post and his Fox and Friends video interview suddenly don't work. Isn't that interesting, Alex?
They didn't work?
They did when I posted it. I watched the video. I read his post. After I posted this on Political Pistachio, the links to those sites, those places where he's on that video and his article he wrote, now I can't get them. The link stopped working.
Well, you know how coincidences are.
Think that's or you think there's something going on?
I think there's an even chance that something's going on. There is nothing that I would. This is what scares me right now. Is there's nothing I wouldn't put beyond this administration.
Right.
They're capable
to silence
of
the opposition.
anything. It's just nothing short of scary. But you look at this guy. What's he complaining about? He's got multi-million dollars in the bank.
Mm-hmm.
The president is black. The attorney general is black. You look at all the success. Yep. What the black people we're talking about are the ones who were unlucky enough to get stuck in the ghetto.
Right.
But the opportunities, America has given up on on racism. They just you got to really look hard and afar for a real, honest to goodness racist. But the left has to keep feeding that fire. They've got to keep pouring gasoline on it to keep the temperature up high enough that they can work their evil.
You ever notice that the Skype image is a mirror image? Everything's backwards. I just held up the Cicero book I'm reading, and I noticed on screen that Cicero was backwards. But you're exactly right, and it's frustrating. It's absolutely frustrating. We've got this guy who not only, like you said, is making his millions. He's got, there's no struggle for him. He was adopted by white parents.
Persecuted the way he's persecuted. If I have a couple of $1 million in the bank.
It reminds me of that Penn and Teller video about how they went to, and folks look this up, it's hilarious. They went to an environmentalist event with a petition. This woman had the petition that would ban water, dihydrogen monoxide, water. And people were signing it right and left. And Penn Jillette said something that caught my attention. He said, are these people, out there as environmentalists and at these events and signing petitions because it's something they believe in, or because they want to belong to something? They want to belong to a movement, or they want to belong to something. And I wonder if sometimes that's the case.
Oh, there's certainly a groupie motive involved. But when you look at the facts of it, America gives more wealth and more rights and more respect to blacks and to women and to other minorities, including our enemies like the Islamics and the communists. We give them all this consideration and bounty more than any other country on earth.
Yeah, and understand, too, our poorest live better than 80 to 90% of the rest of the world.
There was a guy at some conference I was just at that talked to, it was a church. He's a missionary, and he was saying there's world poverty and then there's American poverty.
Right.
And American poverty means you've only got one color TV. In world poverty, you're eating bugs that come in under the door.
Right.
It's a vast difference, and yet all these people in the recent campaign for Sanders, they're saying we want a Marxist revolution. We want to be Marxist-Leninists. Take a look at Russian history. What happened to the Russian people after they got their Marxist revolution?
Take a look at Venezuela.
Take a look at Venezuela. That's right. Or North Korea. You wonder what's wrong with the liberals' brain that they can't see.
Well, it's like my friend from Italy when he was complaining about the communists screwing his country up, and they needed to throw out all the socialists so they could vote in good socialists. I mean, that's seriously the way, well, yeah, but these are American Democrats. We won't do that. We won't mess it up like that. Really?
Everyone
at what point does, and they keep expanding government. At what point does it stop?
Everybody I talk to that's a socialist says that all the other attempts were not really socialism. They're going to do it right.
All right. Final story. Got a couple minutes for it.
20th century, we killed 100 million people for socialism. Now they want to do it again.
Yeah, well, those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. National Baptist Convention being held in Kansas City, Missouri, invited Hillary Clinton to be their keynote speaker. place was pretty full until it was time for her to speak. When she was expected to speak, and I put the image on Political Pistachio, the hall was empty. I mean, empty. There's, I could count the people sitting in the seats, and half of them are look like they're in the choir or something. Then the picture below that shows what Donald Trump does. He fills stadiums and arenas, and he fills them. And it made me think about the polls. We keep seeing these polls out there. She's doing so well, and he's barely hanging in there. My question is this: how true are those polls? Because his Facebook following, his Twitter following is so much stronger.
Hugh Hewitt wrote a book called "If It Isn't Close, They Can't Cheat."
Right, and that goes back to something I told people. Trump needs to win by such a margin that it even overcomes the fraud. I'm a firm believer Romney won the last election. I really am.
Well,
but that's for another time.
We're running out of time,
brother.
In a Shark Tank.
But doesn't the show go by quickly?
Don't tell me it's gone by.
Oh, it's gone by. It's time for you to plug yourself.
Oh, dang. Look, when you get to conservativecannonade.org, go to the column that says more published letters. Go to the bottom. There's an 18-page poem that explains the whole thing to you.
And my name is Douglas V. Gibbs, politicalpistachio.com, douglasvgibbs.com. Hey, advertisers out there, you want more of this program? Advertise. Let us expand. We would love to hear from you. United we stand, combined we kick butt. God bless America, and God bless you. We'll see you next week right here on Constitution Radio. See you then.
The proceeding was a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
Redlands Blueprint and Commercial Printing Company has been serving the greater Inland Empire for over 60 years. For all of your printing needs, from full-color printing to high-speed copying and everything in between, go